What's up, guys and gals? It's time for the latest chapter review for Record of Ragnarok Shuumatsu no Valkyrie, chapter 103, and I believe it's still the latest chapter. And I gotta say, this is an awesome chapter. This is a really well-written backstory chapter for Loki. I am 100% behind it. Now, does this make Loki more sympathetic? Absolutely. Does he still deserve everything coming to him? Yeah, he does. But once again, you understand, at least, there's a level of empathy, if not sympathy, going into this. You know what I mean? So, Loki was born not as the trickster. He was changed due to love, because Loki, at the beginning, he had the blood of the Jotuns in his veins, but he stood shoulder to shoulder with Thor and Odin as one of the most powerful gods. He was this, it's not the best look, but it's like a cross between a punk rocker and a Kiss lover, you know what I mean? And he looks pretty good, I'm not going to lie. It's not a bad look. It's definitely a better look than his femboy twink look. It's definitely a better look. It's not the best look. It could have been cooler, but anyways. And all the gods feared, like, pissing him off and stuff like that. Like, he would murder people, like, would, if they looked at him funny, if they did something wrong or whatever, if they were in his way, he would just immediately, because he had the power to do so, right? Then we get this beautiful double-page spread of all the Valkyrie sisters just enjoying a fun day in the garden, you know what I mean? Sort of like that, and they're all throwing fruit at each other, they're all, playing around and all this stuff, and we get to see a lot of them again and stuff like that, and it's like, okay, so this is what the Valkyrie sisters were doing along with all the other gods and goddesses and stuff like that. Loki just happened to be walking by when Brunhilde decides to throw an entire watermelon, misses, and goes straight into Loki's face. Now, Loki immediately, unhinges his jaw like this crazy monster. It's quite demonic. Chews it down and, swallows it whole and then spits out all the seeds. And they're terrified, like, oh shit, because he crunches it. His big, hour-long shark teeth crunch down. And he's just like, holy shit. And then he just, swallows the whole watermelon and then spits out all the seeds like a Gatling gun, right? And then Brunhilde finds it the absolute funniest thing. She can't hold it in. Just thinks it's absolutely hilarious. And just the way he did it and stuff. And realistically, it does look like the reason I brought up Arlong, it reminds me of something like Luffy would do. Or Garp or Ace or something. It's very One Piece. It's very, the Will of D characters would pull this type of stunt off. They would as a Gatling gun of seeds. 100% One Piece manga level type humor, Goku, that kind of idea, and I'm like, alright, I get it. I get why she finds it funny. Now Loki's looking like, what the hell are you laughing at? And the Valkyrie sisters are like, oh god, he's gonna murder every single one of us. And then Brunhilde looks up and smiles with tears in her eyes, saying, Lord Loki, you are just so funny. And immediately Loki gets starstruck by Brunhilde. So it's sort of it's a meet cute, or is that what they call it? Cute meet? Meet cute, right? It's a meet cute. And I think that's what they call it in the movie industry. It's a meet cute, where the love, the romantic interests, first meet, you know what I mean? You make a cute interaction. Well, this is a meet cute. So, the fact of the matter is that Loki falls in love first sight with Brunhilde. Never felt like this before, and just walks away when Brunhilde apologizes and just says, whatever, it's fine. You know what I mean? And he can't understand this feeling, so then he goes on to realize that smile, like, he's been walking through being this grungy, metal, hard rock, like, fuck you, I'll kill you for looking at me wrong, I'll kill you because I'm bored, I'll kill you just because I'll kill you, and he finally found this feeling, something worth aspiring to, like, to get Brunhilde to smile like that again. It made him feel some warm and fuzzy inside. So he's like, yeah, let's do this. So Loki completely changed. Now, as a man, I will 100% agree that this is what men do who are in love with their woman. And it's also a very fine line to walk. And what I mean by this is, and I'm not going to go into a big 10-minute debate about it, I'm just going to say that generally speaking, men try their best when they fall in love. They try to mold themselves around the woman to make the woman happy. They work hard. They do all that traditional man shit. I should know. I did it. And they are always trying to make their woman smile, their woman happy, right? And they are willing to change. Loki was willing to change from this hardcore blah, blah, blah into the funny guy because it made Brunhilde the woman he loves. And he's obsessed with her, but he does actually love her. That love just got poisoned and toxic and turned into obsession. But it did come from a place of true, at the very least, maybe not full-on love, but definitely attraction and infatuation and loving level feelings. And when men do that, they do try to make their woman happy, their wife or their girlfriend or their woman happy. And Loki did the same thing. He goes, oh, well, the grunge thing, the metal look isn't making her happy. This is making her happy. And most men would agree. I don't care how I dress or how I look. I care that you like how I look. You know what I mean? This is not simp levels of behavior. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, if your wife comes to you of 10 years and says, you know what? I like your hair the way you got it cut last time. And that's all they say. Not that they dislike your current haircut. Not that they dislike your hair. They just really thought you looked really handsome. That's all I need to say. I thought you looked really handsome with your last haircut. I guarantee you, the next time that man gets a haircut, he will get to the same place, to the same barber or hairdresser, and say, I want the exact same thing you did last time. Because it's simple. That's not simp behavior. That's, I want to be admired. I want to be attractive towards the person that I love. You know what I mean? That's very simple. I can't speak on the female side of things on how that works. However, then it turns into something here for Loki. It turns into something, as I said, it's a fine line. That's okay to do without completely changing your personality and yourself for it. But obviously Loki found this very freeing. He found this very liberating. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with him going. He wasn't exactly happy. We don't have degrees of him exactly enjoying his life before that and then regretting turning into a trickster god or a femboy for Brunhilde solely. He found pleasure. He wasn't happy before, and then he was. So it's completely justifiable here, and it's not toxic yet, right? He starts pulling pranks, and they talk about this. And Brunhilde, every time he does it to make sure that Brunhilde sees. She smiles at him, and he constantly, it doesn't matter the victim, he does it to Ares, he does it to Hermes, he does it to Thor, he does it to everybody. He does it to Odin, he does it to Zeus, he does it to everyone, and Brunhilde is constantly laughing at his trickery, and all he needs to validate and make him continue this is Brunhilde's smile and her laughter, right? Now, I would argue that, once again, at this point, this is not toxic. This is wholesome. This is very wholesome behavior. If you do a good job, if you go to a school of kids or to your wife or whatever, and you do something and it makes them happy, if whatever you do is making somebody happy whose opinion and attraction you care about, then you're going to continue to do that. If you're a comedian, if you're a stand-up, like using the school kids, and I mean college kids, if you make them laugh, you're going to say, okay, what made them laugh? And then you're going to look at that, and then you're going to improve on it, and then you're going to go out and do it again and see if they continue to laugh. You're going to try it on other college kids. You're going to try it on this. You're going to try it on that. You know what I mean? So if you go, or even if you're a clown, let's use a school of small children, and you're the clown with the balloon animals. You know, if the pie in the face isn't working, but the balloon animals are, you're going to continue to make the balloon animals, right? If that's your niche, that's what's working. On YouTube, if you're making videos like yours truly and you're not getting ahead, well, obviously this is a bit of looking in the mirror. But if you're doing that and you're not getting anything, obviously that's not working. Something else needs to change. So right at this point, my point of saying all this is that Loki he was not happy being his metal, grungy self. And now at this point, all he needs is this level of validation from the woman that he loves to continue to do what he's doing. You know, and generally speaking, most men, if they come home after a long work week or a long day, and their wife, for whatever reason, let's say it's let's not even go traditional and sound all traditionalist on this stuff. But let's say they're, the modern woman or whatever, and she comes home and she just says, "Oh, did you have a hard day? We don't need to go out. We can stay here and order a pizza." That all, I'm not saying she has to cook and clean and do all that, but the consideration of, thank you for working hard, babe. If you're tired, we can figure out other things. I appreciate you, or just hugs them, kisses them when they come home. That level of validation is wholesome, not toxic. And if you continue to get that validation from a good place, which Brunhilde is giving this from a good place. Loki has obviously romantic intentions, and he doesn't really know how to express them. But generally speaking, no man with their first love ever does. So this right here, I'm totally behind. It's after all the trickery and stealing Thor's hammer and all this stuff, all that goes down. And she's still smiling. However, it seems like it was one of those, coincidences. I don't know whether to call it a coincidence or that this day was going to be different than any other day, because we don't really bring it up. But he obviously had picked some flowers to give to her, so maybe this was the day. And that would be the irony, the tragedy of it all, is that Loki was finally going to go and profess his love with a bouquet of flowers to Brunhilde. Seems to be the case. I'm reading between the lines there, but let's even assume that, because that's obviously the worst case scenario, the worst timing. And he sees Brunhilde with Siegfried, who she's absolutely in love with. And Loki immediately notices that no matter how many times he made her laugh, how many times he made her smile, she never looked like that. And it just completely destroyed his confidence. And then it immediately, this is the turning point. This is where everything went poisonous. This is where everything went toxic. This is where everything went obsessive. So I believe that he truly had pure romantic feelings and love for Brunhilde. And then it all went to shit due to envy, jealousy, and everything else in between. So he ends up, as Siegfried, killing Farin, or Fanrir, or I forget how to say the dragon's name. I really do. Anyways, the dragon ends up being beheaded, and we find out that the big man who killed the dragon, the dragon slayer himself, Siegfried, actually never killed the dragon. Whether he could or not is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is, from what we know, is that it was never Siegfried. It was Loki disguised as Siegfried. And they immediately figure this out, because Loki, did that, and this is where everything goes wrong. So Brunhilde and Siegfried are brought before Lord Odin, who is not Odin, but as we know, and they think they're here under, for marriage, congratulations and stuff like that. He's like, no, your man just killed, you're engaged, your betrothed just killed my beloved dragon. What do you have to say for yourself? Loki's there at the trial and stuff like that. They talk about it, and they're just like, absolutely not. Like, this can't be the case and stuff like that. If you have anything to say in your defense, this must be some type of mistake. Brunhilde notices the snicker and sneer and the self-serving gratification on Loki's face, and that's all it takes for her to realize the truth. though she doesn't get a chance to say it, it immediately resonates with Odin, who is Odin, and recognizes that the four treasures are reacting, the four calamities are reacting to the fact that Siegfried is the perfect vessel. He's the vessel and stuff like that. So Odin immediately, instead of murdering, which is what Loki's original plan was, it's like, what a chance, what a chance. We are going to take you into Tartarus, or whatever, and we are going to, imprison you and stuff like that. I condemn you to prison in Tartarus for all of eternity. Until, obviously, he can figure out everything else, right? So Loki, Brunhilde, obviously, Siegfried's still alive, so that's a bit better than immediate execution right there. But Brunhilde is obviously very traumatized and upset. Loki didn't expect this outcome, but it's seemingly, in the end, in Loki's mind, it seemed to work out. This was a trick born from a twisted love, and that's the best way to describe it. As I said, in the original, before he knew about Siegfried, his intentions were unrequited, but still, I would argue, on a level of purity. There was unrequited, one-sided love. That doesn't make it wrong. That doesn't make it evil. That doesn't make it bad to love someone from afar. The problem is when you do anything negatively based on this stuff, like due to the jealousy, the envy, the greed, the gluttony, that any of those, when you use that and then try to get the person for yourself, when you do underhanded means, this is where everything went wrong. And so it is, at this point now, it is a twisted love. So Loki immediately thinks like, okay, well now Brunhilde doesn't have Siegfried, he's out of the way, I will be able to make her smile the way I was going to and stuff. And so he goes up to her at the fountain, we assume a few days later, something like that. They don't really give us a time, a level of how long it's been, but we can assume he let her alone for a few days. He's not a total moron. And then, so he decides to, start to regale her with a few stories of his pranks. Doesn't seem to work, and Brunhilde just walks off, because once again, Brunhilde is suspicious. She's right, but she has the suspicion that Loki is the one who caused all this. And Loki tries by bargaining now. Once again, he's using the bargaining thing, and he's, because you could argue, not every time are you going through the 5 stages of grief when it comes to bargaining, you know what I mean? But he is going through a level. He went through the anger and stuff like that with the Siegfried and the jealousy. Now he's down to the bargaining stage, you know what I mean? So he's like, well, hey, by the way, I have free access to Tartarus. Do you want me to bring a letter to Sig or something like that? Like, I can do that for you. He's just trying to get her to talk to him at this point, And then she immediately coldly, no thank you, and stuff like that. And immediately this is where Loki realizes that he's never going to get that smile back. I just wanted to see you smile. And then he becomes obsessive. He tries redoing everything he ever did. He tries the watermelon gag. It doesn't work. He tries doing different food sources. He tries everything. And then nothing will work. And then obviously during the beginning of the series, by provoking the gods into Ragnarok, Loki recognizes that she's going against everyone just for the sake to save Siegfried. You're doing this all for Siegfried. And Loki realizes this, and his jealousy has just doubled and tripled down. Now, one small redeeming thing, and Thor notices this, one small redeeming thing is at the beginning of the series, before even the first round, when it's some type of, it begins with an I. It's not Icarus. It's not Icarus, is it? No, it's some Illidan, some other, some lust demon angel thingy comes out and does the whole, like, I'll take you for myself, Brunhilde, for doing such a vile thing, and blah, blah, blah. Loki is behind a pillar and ready to slaughter, like, he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, even he's got his honor to a degree. Honor is the wrong word. That's too good for Loki. But he's got a standard, and he's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you think you're doing to Brunhilde? I will kill you. And he's going to be the savior. Thor shows up and is the one to do it, as we know. This is where Brunhilde, just continues on, doesn't realize that Loki was there to save her. Thor knows Loki was there, and it's just like, giving him the eye sort of idea, like, Thor is impossible to know what he's thinking, honestly. We don't know enough about his character, so I don't know if he's sort of like, you should have acted sooner, what, like, I intervened because you should have intervened sooner, or what he's thinking, we don't know. Then, after Ragnarok started and stuff like that, we get the continuation of the Heracles scene. Which, once again, Loki, the reason we hate you is for doing, as Jack said, the unacceptable of daring to bring that man. Daring to pretend that that man's back. You know what I mean? And we see Heracles, remember, he said, I am always on the side of the righteous, of the just. You know what I mean? And he walks off. We never saw this part of the scene. The scene actually continued. Their conversation continued. And I like when a lot of people hate this. You know what I mean? People will call it bad foreshadowing, retconning. Cinema sins will always give it a counter like, oh, but you didn't show us this before, so it was added on later, so skip, point. You know, that kind of idea. I am not of that opinion, because if it doesn't lead anything to the scene at the time, and this is only relevant, it's not relevant to what happened in round 4, it is relevant to Loki's character now, it's okay to say that this scene had a longer conversation and we're only now seeing it, when it doesn't change anything for the last 102 chapters. We just now have the information. It doesn't change anything that happened. And having that information wouldn't have changed anything up to this point. But it's still very good to have, and I just like that. I don't mind when they do that. It bothers me if they change something and say, oh, well, this was always this way, and then you go back and you sort of pick some plot holes through the first arc sort of idea. Then it's an issue. But doing this never bothered me, because then that's when Loki decides to continue to talk to Heracles and say, you're righteous, huh? You think just because you're a Boy Scout that things will work out because you're the hero, sort of, like, once again, he's projecting on him. He's like, just because you're the Boy Scout, just because you're the Captain America, the Superman, while he's feeling like, once again, the Joker. He's like, just because you think everything's okay, you think everything's happy because you're the hero and I'm not. You know what I mean? And I did so. I think Loki once again hates himself to a degree here, and he's projecting on Heracles and saying, you can't always get what you want. How about you choke on that, Heracles, and stuff like that. And Heracles, so insightful, because he's literally, once again, the best character in Record of Ragnarok, bar none. And he just looks at him and he goes, Loki, if that's truly how you think, then why do you look so miserable? And he's just like, yeah, so Heracles, once again, being the boss, in death, Heracles is still owning chapters. Like, years, literal years since he's died, later, he is still owning chapters. In shots we never saw, and just being the man that we know, the man that we love. And it's just like, okay. The man is too cool. The man is too cool for school. Now, this is where, as I said, the end part of the chapter in lies, we jump back. So we got the whole Loki backstory. We know why he's obsessed with Brunhilde and stuff like that. And he just believes that Heracles is wrong and stuff like that. He believes that I'm only miserable because Hilde lost her smile. And I love her more than anybody else. And it's fine. I will kill them. I will kill them all and stuff like that. And in the end, Loki, obviously, he was shot square between the eyes. And it did not work, however, because now he was resummoned through the rabbit in behind. And now he's here to wipe out all of humanity, and the rabbit is in behind Simon. So now we're going to get a full-on, okay, Loki has tracked down Simon. How is Simon going to fight in close quarters? End of chapter. As I said, what an amazing chapter. It was fantastic. I got nothing more to say. Like, twisted love, very apt description of what happened here. It started out as very pure and honest infatuation and building towards a good, solid, wholesome love, and then it immediately got twisted due to the negativity, due to the jealousy, once again, Loki did this to himself. Brunhilde is not to blame. Loki internalized this and created his own mess of problems, and then obviously made Brunhilde miserable. His obsessiveness over Brunhilde then got even worse. and it got twisted, and hence twisted love. So it works out completely. The backstory worked out very, very well. Once again, empathetic, yes. Sympathetic, not exactly. Because I can empathize with how Loki got to this point. But, once again, everything he did once he reached that point and every action he took after finding out that Brunhilde had eyes only for Siegfried, everything after that is just, no, I got nothing for you. You know what I mean? I know it sucks. Losing I'm technically, once again, no divorce, so I'm sort of in limbo, but yeah, the love of my life left me. You know what I mean? Not for another man, so maybe I don't know how that feels, but still, it's still, once again, worst pain I've ever felt, and at the end of the day, it's not something I wish on anybody. That being said, it would not condone my actions if I were to do a bunch of, people could understand why I would do potentially very negative, spiteful, hateful things as a result of that, right? But it doesn't make it justified, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Just because there's a level of understanding to why someone reaches that point and why someone takes certain actions doesn't excuse them or justify them or anything like that. You know what I mean? So, anyways, that's my take on the chapter. I thought it was a very good chapter, very solid, and it's always a great chapter when we have Heracles. When Heracles shows up, you know it's a fire chapter. So, anyways, now officially caught up on Record of Ragnarok. Once again, sorry that this one took so long. I've been apologizing for the last month of worth because, once again, if you guys want to know why, there's a video out explaining, the future of the content, why I was late on all these reviews and stuff like that. And so you can go check out that video. But anyways, yeah. For the most part, we're caught up. I don't think 104 has dropped yet, so yeah, we're caught up with Shuumatsu and Valkyrie. Cool. So anyways, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see all of you back here for chapter 104. Looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.